What do you think about the rise of post-liberal thought in the United States today? How would you answer? I've been trying to follow what these people are saying, and they call themselves post-liberals because they have rejected classical liberalism. They believe that in the mid-20th century, after World War II, that the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States formed sort of even though they were opponents, they formed an agreement amongst themselves of shared premises. And those premises were an appreciation for classical liberalism and a conception that the United States government has a certain role in the world. So it's connected to neoconservatism and desiring to establish freedom and democracy throughout the world. And then it's also, in some ways, it's tied to this idea of progress. And while the leftist progressives would say progress means expanding more and more rights and those kinds of things, the Republicans also believed in rights and freedom as sort of a locus of what should be our political goal. And so then these post-liberals are coming in and saying, well, maybe this was a bad idea. We should reject it. Examples would be Patrick Deneen and Yoram Hazony. I believe they would all probably ascribe to this post-liberal idea, although they might call themselves different things like national conservatives. Some of them might even call themselves dissident right, which has some other associations, but they might be connected with it to a degree. But I would also challenge them and say, well, you think you're post-liberal, maybe you're pre-liberal. A lot of them seem to be advocating things that would have been considered common sense before John Locke, before that paradigm of classical liberalism. So trying to understand what they really believe and what they stand for, I've read Yoram Hazony in depth, taking a lot of notes. Turns out Hazony, when he was at Princeton, started a publication called the Princeton Tory. Now this is a clue about what he believes. Somebody who focuses on individual rights, believes in the Declaration of Independence, would not likely start a publication called the Princeton Tory. So I consider him to be pre-liberal. I think that that's really his goal, is he wants to go back to before Thomas Jefferson, before the ideas of John Locke. And he really rails against John Locke in his book, Conservatism or Rediscovery. So understand, they tell you what they believe by their names. Now, in connection with Yoram Hazony, there has been this National Conservatism Conference, and they call themselves the New Right. An exemplar of that view would be Matthew Peterson. He is an integralist Catholic, but he's working with Protestants, and he formed this New Founding organization with them, and I don't know all the details of how they're related, but New Founding seems to have a whole bunch of publications associated with it, including American Reformer and another one called Align. And if you think about what they're trying to do, American Reformer is really not pro-American. If you read what they're talking about, if you look at the fact that they published Timon Klein, they actually are pre-liberals. They'd call themselves post-liberals, but they're pre-liberals, aren't they? I mean, they believe in theocracy. At least they're willing to publish those who do. They're willing to take it real seriously. They had this massive discussion of Stephen Wolf's book as if it was a book worth reading. So that's the landscape a bit. I mean, there's a lot more to it that I could say, but I want you to see they tell you what they stand for if you pay attention. So Align magazine, I just did a video about it the other day where they sent out an article saying that the Egyptian pyramids were a model for what we can do if we get past this older conception of the government being about preserving individual rights and liberties and begin to go back to a different kind of conception, which I think is even older, but it's the conception of the government as that which marshals the public resources and achieves good works. And so they champion these mausoleums of mediocrity, these ancient pyramids, as an example of the glory and splendor of what a nation can achieve if we all just pull together for the common good. Well, I got to thinking that their magazine is called Align, and they don't want you to align by choice, by donating to a project or by funding it with your business. They want to align you by the power of the state. So it's not you doing the aligning, it's them aligning you. There's another magazine from these post-liberals, and it's called Compact, a radical American journal or something like that. Sobram Amari, that guy that got himself famous by being the other end of the debate against David French. He started this Compact magazine, and I think he was originally associated with Yoram Hazony and the whole national conservatism thing, but I think they had a breach, something to do with a disagreement over national policy, foreign policy about Ukraine or something. Point being, though, these guys all have a certain set of shared premises. They want to reject the conception of government that the American founding fathers believed in. They want to reject the Declaration of Independence and the ideals there, or at least they want to say, hey, we've been thinking too much about liberty lately. Let's downplay that. What we really need is a strong national government that is in charge of people's morals. It's going to be a vigorous, energetic government. Energetic is Yoram Hazony's word. So these post-liberals, they of course name their projects things like the American Reformer, which means we want to take America back to the days of the Protestant Reformation. Align, which means we want to align you by the power of taxation and by getting better people in charge, because obviously it's just our party needs to be in charge, and we need more power. That would solve a lot of problems, wouldn't it? And then the Compact magazine, what is Compact about? Well, they don't mean a voluntary compact. They mean we think that philosophically, that the fact that we all live as human beings entails certain logical things that we must make a compact with each other, and the compact requires that the national government be strong and that it push people in their own interest in that direction. You know, I would name a publication something more like an agreement. Something that features this idea that we all think independently and come to the same conclusion, and those of us who have come to that conclusion can work together voluntarily. Contrast that idea with this idea of like harmonizing everyone by force externally. It kind of reminds me of in Atlas Shrugged, one of the villains created this weapon of mass destruction to use against his own population, and it was called the Thompson Harmonizer. What's the symbol? Is it the pyramids of Egypt? Or is it the Constitution? Cannot have both.